So a very warm welcome to episode 1 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell. I'm the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Whelan, the founder.
Well, Chris, I've never been more excited. Use of modern technology to help people get information that they can use when they're having a shower, when they're running their races, whatever they're doing to leverage their time. If we can just give a little bit of wisdom on that, then I'm really excited about what we've got to share.
Yes, I am too. So Kevin, let's get into really what WealthBuilders is all about. How did you come about creating and setting up WealthBuilders, and give our listeners a bit of a backstory, please?
Sure. Well, my own story is born out of some tragedy when my father died very young. And of course, that what stimulated me to build wealth for myself, because, I didn't want to be in a position where if I died young too, I didn't leave a good legacy for my family. But over the years, I think the big catalyst for me was 2008, Chris, which is when the credit crunch came and pretty much everything fell off a cliff. And I had an advisory business, traditional financial planning business. And I realized that in that role, I just wasn't doing or wasn't able to help people break free of what the tradition of financial planning and good wealth planning was all about, which was really the stock market. And since then, I've just seen a mushrooming of people moving on to new things and teaching them how to create streams of income in their life so they can be financially independent, whatever the state of the market. So whether the market crashes or not, whether interest rates go up or down, whether Brexit happens or not at this time, whatever uncertainties, they've got complete control over their finances. And that's what WealthBuilders has been doing for the last 10 years or so. And we've got lots of wisdom to share with people on how to do that.
And you have some wonderful IP, wonderful models, which we'll be covering, of course, in future episodes of Wealth Talk. And I first met you, Kevin, back in 2014, actually coming up to the 5th anniversary. It was April. I remember it very well. Okay. It was my first ever property networking event, and you were speaking that night.
Right.
And you talked about a subject which is close to your heart, which is pensions. And at that time, I had absolutely zero interest in pensions.
Well, who has? Let's face it. It's not the most exciting subject in the world, is it?
But after listening to you that evening, something changed. And I connected with you the following day. Yeah. And that really was the beginning of the relationship. And obviously your wisdom over the last 5 years of the whole wealth building process has really rubbed off and influenced me. So thank you for that.
Congratulations on your successes, by the way.
Thank you. And the purpose of the Wealth Talk podcast, what can people expect, Kevin?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do here is, we know how busy people are. That's the big challenge that anyone's trying to create wealth is there's so much information out there. There's so little time that people have to disseminate what's good, what's bad, and a lot of salesmanship out there too. So what I really want to do with you, Chris, in Wealth Talk is to distill down some nuggets that people can get really good, solid education that stimulates their brain to create more wealth assets. And we'll talk about the definition of assets, I guess, in due course. But what's interesting to me is there are only 7 ways to build wealth. So it's not going to be too long before people really get the hang of that. And of course, by distilling it down, it means there's something they can do with each episode. So we'll talk about something specific. We'll give them a nugget, an action thing, something they can do that will make a difference in their life. And what we want to see is every episode leads to some positive outcome that makes people a little wealthier than they did or than they were just before that. So that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the cornerstones of our message is always built around 3 core areas as well, which is education, support, and connection. Right. And that nicely forms the escape analogy. And that's close to my heart, of course, with the business that I set up, Escape the Rat Race. And explain why education and support and connection are so important.
Yeah, well, I think, when you're talking about building wealth, there's only 7 ways to build wealth. And of course, if you don't know what they are, then you have to start with the principle of education. Look, we know education is a key part of life anyway. So from education at school to education in work, but there's not very much education in wealth. And for somehow this just isn't taught in school. So what we're saying is when it comes to building wealth, there is a scientific process to do it, and it can be taught. And if it can be taught, it can be learned. If it can learned, it can be learned, it can be applied. So therefore, if you know that there's some wisdom out there, there's some knowledge you can pick up and use, then the next thing is support, Now, what that means is the ability to surround yourself with people who will help you. So whether it be making sure your partner's supporting you, or finding a community, which is really what WealthBuilders is all about. It's a community of support. So you don't feel like you're doing this on your own. So that's really important, and that's quite a key part of our message. And the third is connection. And the fastest way to create wealth is to bring education to life by working and talking to people who've been there and done that. In a sense, what we've done together, Chris, so what I've done and created wealth for myself, and you've copied some of those things, but applied your own twist to it. And that's what connection is all about. It's a community that we've created for ourselves now, where people are genuinely sharing the lessons they've learned and are willing to share as they move forward and help somebody else as well. So the whole community is what we'll introduce people to over the course of the coming weeks and months.
Now, we both speak at events, and when the question is asked of people there who'd like to become financially independent, every hand pretty much goes up.
Everyone, 100 out of 100 would put up their hand, yeah.
But the statistics suggest that not all of those 100 make it.
Well, no, there's really no... I'm an economist by training, Chris, as you know, and there's no key data, but the anecdotal data that's kind of reported is about 95% of the population, certainly in the Western world, in UK and the US, just simply won't get to a place of financial independence. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that the money that they have flowing, so it is about flow of money, coming into their life from things they own, is enough so they can live the life they want. So whatever they want to do, however they want to do it, doesn't matter to me whether it's 500 a month, 5,000 a month, or 500,000 a month. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the lifestyle you want. Can that come from things you own and continually flow? And only 5% do that. What we're trying to do is try and impact to help more people. We believe everyone has the right to be financially independent. And our ambition, at least, is to try and get at least 50,000 people on that track so that they can not just create wealth for themselves, help other people too, but leave a great legacy for the next generation, which circles me back really to that original point that I made, that the original reason I decided to create wealth for my own self, and that's why I never really was part of the rat race for very long. I got out of it pretty quickly at age 28. That's why it was really important to me. So it's kind of a full circle, really. Want to help lots of people so they can get a path to their own financial independence as well.
You touched on community being such a big part of WealthBuilders, which it is, and primarily based here in the UK. Talk about some of the people that WealthBuilders really serves well. Like, what are some of the situations and circumstances that people come to WealthBuilders looking for help with?
Yeah, I suppose you could break it down into, first of all, let me make a statement and then say how then we can help. So my view, and the view of WealthBuilders certainly, is that in order to create wealth, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be you have to see value, create value, and be part of your own value creation. You can't just be at the mercy of the stock market and the value which you simply have no control over. So in essence, what we're trying to do is help people become better, stronger, more able entrepreneurs, creating streams of recurring income so that the income flows without them. So the money shows up, they don't have to show up. That's the ideal scenario. And a lot of people want that, but we find that there's probably two groups of people who want it more than anything else. Maybe high income employed people who really can see that the transition from their high income now to what their pensions are going to give them when they reach retirement is such a huge, huge difference that they want to find their way out of the rat race. And you've done a great job yourself, Chris, with your own community of Escape the Rat Race. And I think that's a big market of people who want to almost cross a bridge from being employed and dependent to being in business and independent. Now, the businesses that we tend to see work really well in the UK especially is property. And of course, one of the big areas for property people is, property is expensive in the UK and they need to get access to more funding. So we also, through the community, can share and show people how to get access to more funds so that their property journey keeps going, so it then gets to a place where it can support them. And the third group would be business owners themselves who possibly really just have jobs. They're wearing 10, 12, 13 hats, all doing different skill things that previously their employer was providing them, but they now have to provide for themselves. And consequently, they have so little time, their bandwidth is so restricted that they just don't see enough. They don't have enough time to be able to turn that business into something that itself can create recurring income. And I spend a lot of time with business owners, almost kind of slowing them down so that they can create recurring income for themselves, both inside their business and, of course, by making more profit, can create more wealth outside of that business. Because in the end, to be wealthy, you're in the money management business. Everybody is, just so few people really grasp it. So by learning it as early as possible, then not only do you master it, but then you can pass those skills and that wisdom on to the next generation. I know that's a long answer, but you can tell it means something to me, right?
It does. And the word that springs to my mind is leverage. So it's really understanding the different ways of generating those recurring income streams, but using leverage in the right way to achieve that.
And one of those forms of leverage, and we thought long and hard, didn't we, Chris, when we talked about creating materials for people, is if bandwidth is a problem, isn't probably one of the best ways to tap into some wisdom through the use of a podcast, because you can really tap into that whatever you're doing. So if you're commuting on a train, dial in. If you're exercising, dial in. If you're at home after dinner and you're in bed, the last 10 minutes instead of reading a book, dial in. So you've got opportunities where you can get some of that knowledge, that first part of the ESC, get that education and build that first, and then you can move on to getting your support and connections once some education is really stuck with you and you go, yeah, I'd like to explore further. But until you get to that point, past curiosity, you don't really get the chance to build support levels around you and build connections around you, because you haven't got enough education to make a start.
And it always begins with education.
Always begins with education.
And for people listening now, Kevin, who maybe feel that they're really, really at the beginning of the journey, that they don't have assets, they maybe haven't purchased a house yet, they don't have investments, they may feel, how can I build wealth? How are Wealth Builders able to support those people who really do need to get the education first?
Yeah, well, the core thing there is to recognize that wealth is built step by step. And wherever you are on the steps, and we've got 5 different levels of wealth, which we'll share, I guess, on another podcast. But of course, when you're starting off and maybe not feeling like you're in the best place, maybe you've got more months left at the end of your money, there are definitely things you can do to make progress, to save money, not by penny pinching, but by being smart. And we've got lots of ways to do that. In all sorts of different ways. In the foundation and a process we call debits, which is a whole range of different things. We teach people how they can save some money, wasted money that's in their life, and put that money to good use. So instead of just saving money, which is where there's some really great websites and other places where you can learn to save money. It's the saving and then using that money, because any money you save, you can always even just put your money into a tracker fund, and start building wealth that way. Or if you've got debt, you save some money, you can reduce it off your debt bill, and that increases your net take home. So, the step by step process, wherever you are on the ladder, whether you're at the very beginning, or you're, at a point where you've created so much wealth in your life, you're ready to share that with the next generation. There's a step by step process to do it, and we'll share that along the way. And
that's it. That again comes to the key feature of Wealth Builders, is that the community that you've built up, Kevin, are very much, that's part of the values, is sharing the knowledge, sharing with the rest of the community, so you can learn from those that are already a few steps ahead of you.
Exactly right. I mean, in fact, we enshrine it in a document, and maybe it might be sensible to encourage first-time listeners to go and check out that document, which is the Wealth Builder Values. The values are 7 principles that we live by, which you'd expect to include some things like unimpeachable and unwavering integrity, and that's really important, and the principle of sharing. And all of these things are there in this document called the New Declaration of Independence, obviously a play on words on the American Declaration of Independence. And we invite people to go and have a look at that. And there's a place we have it specifically on the website, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the best place for everyone listening now who just wants to get connected, we've got the Wealth Builders website, which is wealthbuilders.co.uk. We have the Wealth Builders Facebook group, and we have the Wealth Talk page on the website as well. So wealthbuilders.co.uk/Wealth Talk. Everything that we've touched on today will be listed on that page. So you can just dive in.
Have a little look, just check it out. Make sure you feel comfortable with what we have to say. All of the education, by the way, we provide, is there's so much free content. There's no, you know my style by now, Chris. There's no upsells. There's no creativity around anything other than helping people to get more information. And we recognize that many people are drifting in life, and we want to help them, get stuck into doing something as opposed to stuck in a rut. And that's what we're about. So go and check us out, wealthbuilders.co.uk. And with a bit of luck, we'll see some more on the next podcast.
Yeah. So pretty much we're wrapping up episode 1 here. I hope that's given you a taster of what to expect, got you excited about wealth building process. Kevin, in future episodes, what are some of the other reasons why someone might want to plug in and keep checking out Wealth Talk?
Well, they're going to discover the 7 different assets. So, that's a realization in itself. And I think, why don't we pick on next one? Why don't we talk about the 3 different types of people we meet? The drifters, the DIYers, and the dynamics.
The 3 Ds.
The 3 Ds. And why don't we share that and why it's really important to know who you are, so that as you begin your own wealth journey, you start in your own mind.
That is a cracking one. So let's make sure we do that as episode 2. So go and check that one out right now. Get connected to wealthbuilders.co.uk/Wealth Talk. And we look forward to seeing you in a future episode. Thanks, Kevin.
See ya.